Call the meeting to order. I'm just going to point up my agenda here. And if we could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I still don't have a flag, but that's okay. All right, so hi everybody, happy March. Spring is coming. We will start with looking to our public for any comment. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda. So Rory, what's happening at Town Hall?
What isn't happening at Town Hall? Let's see. We had, and so Kathy, I didn't get back to you because I knew we had this meeting tonight. We changed, we made a decision. We kind of, Anne Marie is still, she's got her feet under her now, but in terms of, how we want to approach things, obviously there's always a million things you can do. So in order to get organized, we instituted a Monday morning weekly agenda meeting where we kind of, set our goals for the week and the agendas of which items we're going to tackle and all that. The senior staff meeting was scheduled for a Monday morning, as you may recall. And so we shifted that to Tuesday morning, the same week that it was scheduled to occur, which was this Tuesday, which was right after or right before you emailed me, Kathy. So I forgot, to send you guys the invite, which was, what we had said would happen at the last meeting. So I apologize. I did not get that to you. I think what I will do is just, are you okay with me putting you on the list for now? For the monthly meeting, that way you'll have it. If you can attend it, feel free to attend. If you can't, and if you, at any point, if you want me to take you off, you just tell me and I'll take you off.
Yeah, no, definitely, that's fine.
Can you put us all on that, Rory, or no?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's what I was going to do unless anybody had an objection.
If I can go, I'll go. It just depends on work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So that's one thing. So the other thing was I had conversations with a couple of members of the senior staff about, I wanted their input in terms of how they thought, how they wanted to see it go and what they thought of the presentation and what their concerns were about, how we were going to be doing this. And the main concern that I heard from several was, the meetings for meetings' sake kind of concern, where it's like, we're dedicating time to process and the value just may not be there. So I tried to assuage that a little bit. And I told them, like, look, some of this, yeah, it'll be a little redundant. Fortunately, some of you are great, and you are already doing this. But however, no one has formalized the process in the way that we want to see done. So, what I said was, and I reiterated it to the whole group at this current meeting, is I'm going to be sending out general tasks on a monthly basis. And then I'm going to be setting up meetings with each of them individually that should hopefully not be extremely long in duration. Just that way, the senior staff meeting, typically with just departmental updates, runs about an hour and a half. Unless we have like COVID meetings were much longer than that, right? So I don't want it to turn into your entire Tuesday morning. So I thought it was best to address them on an individual basis. Hopefully that way, maybe they'll be a little more candid I don't know what you guys think about that. And let me clarify, that is for as we go to develop strategic plans at the departmental level. They are still expected and did provide updates on items in the plan during the regular meeting.
You know, Rory, the strategy really is, you're right, the meeting's sake, that's some of the issue, like you want to avoid. But if they're communicating to you in shorter sessions, what you guys are in, you have a common knowledge to, it's going to actually help them longer term versus create the gaps that could happen. I hope I'm trying to say it right. If you're doing this process right, it's actually a shorter. There'll be less meetings and it'll be shorter.
That's a big if, Bob.
Intention, right? I mean, it's getting them to that point is the problem, you know.
Yeah, you know, I think why I didn't just say like, yeah, no, I understand that, but we're going to do it anyway, is just the kind of growing pains, which is, again, they're already doing a lot of this, but just the formalization part of it, that is going to feel redundant to them because they are already doing it. It's just not in the format that we want to see it, right?
I think, though, part of the success of this method comes in the formalization of it.
Oh, I mean, it works, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we have a meeting every morning, you know, to track progress and do all that stuff. And in the beginning, the meetings were a bit longer. Now it is not uncommon for our entire team to be in and out in less than 10 minutes.
I was just going to say the same thing. We've had the same experience. Once you're on common ground, the meetings become way shorter.
You know, so again, my concern was just that the meeting already, the purpose of the senior staff meeting, what we hope is, I don't care if you think anybody else is going to care. I want you to tell me what you're doing, what you've done in the past month, what you see on the horizon, because what always happens, and the reason that we like doing it this way is somebody says, oh, you know, you're paving a road. Had you considered school busing? You know, the superintendent chimes in, right? And it's those intersections that people had not considered. Unfortunately, in doing that, you know, some of it, yeah, it doesn't matter to anybody. There's always the chance, right? But the existing meeting is already 60 to 90 minutes. And what I'm talking about is, you know, last month I had talked about, let's say we're doing, you know, I laid out like 7 steps for them in terms of the strategic planning process. So maybe we assign to them, I need you to give me a list of, you know, what you think your mandates are and who you think your stakeholders are. And then we'll go through that and we'll see how you're doing with that and what you're missing. And, you know, maybe we can add a couple more things, blah, blah, blah. That's what.
You get to a point, Rory, where it's just a what's changed. I mean, you're on a plan, and there are things that they're going to go just like the plan said, versus what is not going to make it based on what you said. Because what I find, and that's why I'm going to ask you, when they report, are they reporting the same information, the same, you know, just saying that this is where, but I'd rather, if I were you, I'd rather know what's changed. I know you're going to make the goal that I gave you, but if you're not, or if something changed, what's changed? I think that's like a more important component to this versus just repeating the same thing you said last month or.
So, you know, this past month, I did not do what I said I was going to do at our last meeting because this entire month just got away from me. With Malia being gone, like.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yep.
So when I say that, what I'm talking about is we have the 1-year plan, right? And just the periodic updates, yes, those will continue to be in the regular senior staff meeting. And you're right, it doesn't take very long just to give updates on what's already in the plan. That doesn't take long. What I'm talking about is, and this is what I assumed, and maybe I misunderstood what we had talked about last month. As we get towards, we're in the process of transitioning to when this board is creating the plan to the staff generating the plan themselves. And so starting that process from the beginning and kind of going through the steps to arrive at a point where, they're hopefully thinking the way that we want them to think about their departments and generating their own goals and deliverables. That is what I'm trying to do separate from the senior staff meeting, so as to not draw that meeting out.
I think this first year to get them kickstarted, though, you may just want to already have that set up for them if they're not going to bite in and take that initiative,
Well, and the other part of it, which will be in parallel but has not yet happened, is I've talked to Rob Dyer. I think I mentioned this last month, who is very eager, and I've seen him doing the work. He sent one of his guys over to start doing the inventories that were in the year one or the 1 year plan, or rather to update existing inventories, I should say. And he said, I'm working on X, Y, and Z projects. They should be slowing down soon. Maybe when you get a replacement for Malia, we sit down and we go through the process so that in the senior staff meeting, you have an example to point to of a homegrown staff-generated plan that can serve as a model for the other departments. And if there's anybody to do it, Rob is the one to do it.
Good work.
But really,
that only gives you one department covered, right?
For sure. And there are some who, I have a feeling on most of the staff, and, hopefully they surprise me. But I think there are some who are going to need their hands held through the process. So there are some that I'm very confident in, and there are some that I think are going to need some help.
So do you have a sense for sort of what portion of your team is you expect them to be successful? Your vibe is that they're leaning into it. I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is how pervasive is acceptance, and how pervasive is, I'm going to just listen to them talk and I'm going to continue doing everything the way I've been doing it.
That's hard, and I don't know.
Okay, no, that's fair.
I'm looking at the invite for the senior staff meeting, right? And I'm going through it. So some things that I don't know, if all of you know, or any of you know for that matter. At the Board of Ed, the superintendent and the superintendent for finance and operations are both leaving. And so the Board of Ed is very much kind of up in the air at the moment. Right now, the only two other members of the senior staff group who are involved are Rob Dyer and Tim Connors, the facilities director. So both of those guys, Rob, not worried about it at all. Tim, I think, needs a little bit of help.
Why do you think he'll need help?
Just because Tim is extremely capable. I think he, since I've been there, maybe the best person we've had in that job.
I would say Tim's pretty sharp. That's why I'm just,
not at all. But just in terms of putting things down on paper, okay, and long-term planning, I think that aspect,
That's fair.
to help with. And then, right now the police chief's contract is up in the air. It expires in June, and there's no, resolution as of yet with that.
I mean, I just wish I could have time. I mean, honestly, like even with Paul or Tim, if I could just have an hour with them alone, I could get them on point.
Yeah.
That it would just, all I need is a period of time just to help them get it down on paper, and it'll make complete sense to them. I think everybody would say the same thing. If you just had a period of time, if you pick your battle, you could probably get them kick-started, and that's where I think that's where we can help.
Yeah.
Well,
the other part, I think, and it sounds like an excuse because I know you guys are all operating in the same environment that we are. When we used to do the senior staff meeting, we go to the Norma drummer room, we all sit around a table. After the meeting, the things that come up with, the intersections of where the departments meet, we talk them through right then and there before everybody leaves, right? And if I was sitting there with a blackboard or a whiteboard, and just drawing things out, and I think that would be a little bit easier. But
so here's kind of a renegade thought. What if you did that? Could you not go to a classroom or a place with a camera and a board and literally go through that exercise, just because people aren't sitting, or even allocate time, for that interplay to happen? You can do it on a Zoom call. I think we're all comfortable enough with the technology now.
Medium, I think some of the staff, yes, some of the staff, not so much. And that's not to say, look, I mean, hopefully, God willing, we're already talking about maybe returning to in-person meetings somewhere around April, maybe, right? But the governor's emergency powers expire as of April 20th. And so at that point, unless something is done, we will not have the authority to do Zoom meetings. So we're looking at trying to figure out how that's going to work. The other part is some departments more than others have real seasonality, in their jobs. And so, and the other part is, we have a new first select woman. She's been there for several months at this point, but compared to Kurt, who had been there 10 years practically, she's still developing her priorities, and the staff is responding to those priorities, right? So someone like Chris Pelosi, who has a lot of items in the strategic plan, is also, working his way through the fact that we've had a ton of vacancies come up during COVID that we chose not to fill because of COVID. And now we're getting to that point. So there are some, I think, legitimate capacity issues. But we'll work through those over the course of the year. I mean, that's what we're looking at.
I want to be careful how I say this, but this should work in the normal flow of your of what you guys do. It shouldn't be this extra thing. So I'm getting concerned how you're explaining it back to us like it's going to be some extra work that they have to do. If you embrace this right, it's not extra, it's just what you do. And I think that's where maybe I'm getting confused, because even if they just listen, if I were them, I would just base what I do every day, put it in the strat plan for the year, and just start communicating that on a repeated basis at minimum, just to get the ball rolling. And then as I recognize that, hey, I know the business, I know that the town understands what I do day to day, and I really just need to identify the special things or the things that I really need to show that we're making progress on. That's when I would make the cutover. So at bare minimum, we're not even asking them to do that second step. We're just asking them this is the way you should communicate on a repeated basis, just to get them in the process flow. I don't know.
Is the concern that they think that we're looking for something beyond what they do on the day-to-day, that the expectation is that we're looking for some extraordinary, superstar stuff?
I think
we want them to think about what the plan is and how what they do impacts the plan. Period.
Yeah, so what I would say is I think we are looking for something beyond what they do currently. In that, again, while they're most of them are thinking strategically already anyway, they have not formalized and written down the processes, right? And so
they're showing up to work and they're just doing whatever they want to do. At the end of the year, that's got to be accumulated. So anything they do impacts the end of year, right? And all we're saying is, let's just understand. I mean, I'm probably oversimplifying a little bit. Let's just understand what you're doing to get through your year. Let's start there.
I wouldn't say that it's asking them for anything more. It's asking them to stop flailing and just picking up whatever task that they think is appropriate and then actually planning tasks, which makes everybody's lives easier, including theirs.
They're going to do it anyway. They're going to do their job anyways. All we're saying is, how does it impact the end of year or the goal or what you're trying to achieve? So I think it is positioning on, because I know, because I'm saying this because I remember when we first cut over, a lot of my guys right away, they were saying this is going to be extra work. And I backed them right into, no, we've been working like this for years. You're just not communicating it. So all we're doing is getting on a process step flow to communicate it in a repeated manner. This way, the mundane or the things that are going to get done regardless, your next year's strategic plan will be a lot more effective because you'll recognize those things are going to get done anyways. And I need to address the things that are really going to make hay every year and how the town's going to receive it. It's just I don't know. I think we just got to get them over that hump.
I think what I'm hearing, Rory, is that you could use support from us.
Rory didn't have to tell us that. That poor kid's doing a million things.
Well, that's it. So let us do that.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say, and really, like, I want you guys to be frank with me, because I also understand, that I know the public sector and pretty much only the public sector, right? And so, your input is valuable to me to kind of ground me in what realistic expectations should be. Again, we're in the process of a transition. And so I don't think people are flailing, right? I think people are already making the strategic decisions, but they're not accustomed, like creating a report is something that some of them are not accustomed to doing, right? And so that's not to say it shouldn't be done. We absolutely need it to be done because that's how we're going to generate the data. And yes, I could absolutely use support. Just COVID, has, I have a meeting every night this month, basically, right? Like it is a lot, and God willing, it will be ending soon, and that will give me some spare capacity. But it is just going through the transition process.
Roy, there was one thing that's really important here. It's one of those things like I never believed it. And when we got purchased by Emerson, it was one of the statements at first when I heard it, I got mad. And then as I looked at it long term, it made sense. Is if it's not in the chart, it's not in your heart. And what that means is, it took me a while to even grasp it. If I can't communicate it in a way that I'm going to stand behind it, that I can put it into a report format, I'm just going to work and making a paycheck. I got to believe in what my goal is. Mm-hmm. So that's why getting these guys to start thinking about it from a strategy. So there is a strategy, and I'm not saying that they're not, but it's easy to vary from that strategy when you don't have a plan, to kind of take any path that comes up at that moment in time.
Yep.
And then at the end of the year, when you miss, you go, well, I missed because of a million different things. If you put it down on paper and you can report on it and communicate it in a repeated manner, you believe it, that's when you know your guys are doing what they're supposed to be doing. I did not believe that until, because I was at a small company before getting purchased. But once that happened, I recognized the importance of it. Because then people, when they have to report on it, you don't take the short side. You get more thorough about what you need to do over the course of the year.
Yeah.
So is there an understanding, or is there real value for them to do this? Do they understand? And I don't mean the philosophical value. I mean the reason you go to work value. I mean, because yes, I agree 100% with Bob that the more you believe in what you're doing and being able to quantify and being able to, define is super important. But if as an employee, there's no what's in it for me.
I tried to communicate that, right, in my presentation spiel, which was just like, everybody here goes to the Board of Finance. How much easier would it be? The Board of Finance, they don't see many graphs. How easy would it be for you to just put a table in front of them and say, here is my value. Here it is in numbers in a table that is very easy to understand. Like, I don't have to hard pitch you. I'm just demonstrating my value to you. And I think some of them looked interested. I also, from some of them heard a kind of like, hey, that was a real nice presentation, Rory. Was that some clip art? Like, because it hasn't been done this way, I think there is going to be some adjustment. And I think what I'm struggling with is that I've been using this analogy a lot lately. Municipal government in the town of Seymour is Moneyball. We're not Greenwich. We don't have money to throw at people to bring in, people who are like, accustomed to managing with data and all these things. They're very good at what they do. But it's that something we've always struggled with is that managerial aspect where people can take a step back and take a look at things. And that's what we're trying to do with the plan. And I think that it is a harder transition. I don't know. That makes sense.
So maybe I wasn't clear in my question. So being candid, if I know that at the end of the year, the person who does my review is going to sit there and look at my strategic plan and what I've delivered on, it has a whole hell of a lot more meaning to me than some esoteric, abstract, theoretical application of, of anything. If I know that whoever sits across that desk from me is going to pull out that chart and go, this is what you did.
That's what they're afraid of. When you start saying what you're saying, Rory, that's what they're afraid of. That they're not going to meet their goals and they're not going to make it. But what they don't understand is if you have valid reasons, you've done other things, they can be added. Listen, if I were you at this point, especially if they're not embracing it, I would take every department head, and I don't care if I'd have them on this conference call with us four or whoever all of us, and help them generate the strategic plan that they're going to follow. At that point, we can talk them into what's important to them and why you want to relate it into a strategic plan versus you standing in front of them as more of the manager trying to drive that. Have the strategic planning committee come as a separate source to help them generate what their strat plan is. Pick your battle. Maybe, you know what? Let them say no, but at least you'll know where your gaps are. A couple of the guys might embrace that.
I think they understand that this is the expectation. I think they understand that this isn't going away because for, at least the past 6 months now, we haven't gone through a senior staff meeting where it doesn't come up. And I don't reiterate the expectations. But
you're 5 years into a 10-year overall strategic plan. And if I was to ask every one of them if they even knew it even existed, I'm listening to you right now. They don't know. They have no clue.
Well, I mean,
and that's what the problem is. The town has a plan. They could do whatever. If they want to do whatever they want, they could work somewhere else. But the town has a plan, whether they like it or not. Now they have the opportunity to add to that plan, make it better, and do all those things so it works for them. Versus, we're going to do whatever we do, and you guys don't know what you're talking about.
I think that's a good point, Bob. I think the fact is the plan is there, and whether they like it or not, at a certain point, they're going to be judged on the success of the plan by somebody, and it's better for them to have an input on what goes into the plan.
And let us change it. There might be something in the plan that they come to us and say, that's bullshit. I don't want that. Great. We'll change it. We'll take it off. We'll put it whatever you want on. Now you lock them in.
But I think part of it too, though, is it's got to come from higher than you, Rory. I think you've got, it may need to come from.
Well, Anne Marie buys in, right? She's told us to our face that she buys in. That if she buys in, then she has to say it. She has to tell the employees. Otherwise, I mean, Rory is great, but Rory is not the CEO of the town. Rory is not the head honcho.
And all we want to do is help them. I want to make it right for them. I want to make the plan so they're successful.
Right.
Yeah, and it doesn't we're starting to sound like it's a very top-down edict, but it should really be, so much of this should be coming from them and what they want and how they think their department should be running and what they need from other people to succeed.
Yes, Stefan, I only use that just for the sole purpose of just to get them to give input. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then you can change it to whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. What I do think is a problem, or it's a challenge that you're going to see anytime, is we already have something that exists and everybody is going to be comfortable people are gonna just sort of default to just saying, okay, well, I can do parts of that. And I feel like people will make it easy on themselves to just say, okay, I'm gonna pick the things that I can do from this list. I'm gonna say those are what I can do, and then I'm just not gonna do other things. So it is hard to get people to solicit their input, but it needs
But
to
sometimes
start
that's okay.
happening.
Yeah, sometimes that's okay to get its kick started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you pick your battle though there, just so that you can embrace it and they can see the win and they can see why you do it. And then that's why I said the first year you absorb some of that stuff. The next year it could be completely different.
One thing I can't help but wonder though, and I think that I'm hearing from Rory, is that, Bob, Stefan, you guys and I we're in a different world. And I'm hearing from Rory that the mindset isn't the same yet at town hall as it is where we go every day.
Yes, and I can understand that, but at the end of the day, we come from a world where we're getting paid to do a job, and the people who work for the town come from a world where they are getting paid to do a job. And we're getting paid to push projects from start to done. People at town hall are getting paid to push projects from start to done.
Right, but I think the thing is, that at the end of the whatever period, somebody's going to sit down and say to you, is going to hold you accountable. And that's very clear. So I guess what I'm asking is that the fact that if Bob has a list of things that's assigned to him and he doesn't do any of them, and we get to the end of the year, are we going to pat Bob on the back and go, good job, try again harder, or is Bob going to get smacked?
Well, if Bob had a list of the things he was supposed to do, right, and then had a list of 20 other things that he did that didn't tie back to the strategic plan, two things happened. The strategic plan was wrong, right? I mean, because there's probably things that came in front of it, but at least he'd have to justify that and say, I did all these other things. So yeah, this is the plan, but I did all these other things. But at least you can tie that together at the end of the year and go, okay, let's make sure your strategic plan this year has the tasks you need to get done.
Right.
Let's think about it first. And it's not going to be 100%, and you're going to make mistakes, and you may not even make the plan, but at least have a strategy so you're growing towards something versus I'm going to do my own thing. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it.
I'm afraid that we're stressing Rory out, and I'm afraid that
I'm literally looking at Rory going,
don't worry about it. I'm a rubber band that's already about 20 feet long. So
right, but we're not. I think we're starting to get into the realm of not being constructive, and I think we need to get back to being constructive. So I think the overall question needs to be, Rory, one, is this process salvageable? I really think yes, it is, and I really hope so. But two, what can we do to make a little bit of progress? How could we get a short-term win? How could we get somebody bought in?
This is a very difficult question. If I had to guess, to put a number on it, I would say half of the people see the value.
Just to have the ability of have them come to this meeting, take one of the guys, have them come to this meeting and go, let's talk about what the strat plan is for the rest of the year for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are your goals? What are you thinking?
So I guess here's where I think the problem lies. I feel like I understand the strategic planning process and the value that it presents to an organization, right? I feel like I can convey that. And I hope that I did. I really wish I'd recorded the thing so that you guys could see, and maybe I said some things incorrectly that, you know, that didn't land the way that I thought that they did. I think the difficulty comes in translating the ideas into practices. And I think that the disconnect is that that is not how they've operated. Where there's, you know, if you ask them to articulate what they do and put it into a graphic already, not what, you know, what should you do, what are your goals, et cetera, et cetera. I think if you ask them what you do, that would be a challenge.
So what if they had to write a training manual?
That's scary though, Rory.
Well,
It is.
so, I mean, the thing is, I think, you know, I've been discussing this with Anne-Marie lately, right? Like, Kurt was great. And Kurt moved the town a great distance from where it was previously in some aspects. I think every leader who comes in is going to have different priorities, and we will move forward in those ways, right? But there are some very fundamental things that are not in place where two things. There's some very fundamental things that are not in place, right? Like, one project that we're working on right now is like a records management. Did I freeze again? Are you, do you have like
Responsibilities and can't, you know.
Yeah, I understand. I think I feel the same way, where it's like, this change isn't easy, right? But we're not suggesting something that is impossible or even really that challenging. And it's actually something, and I think the problem is, though, that the weight of implementing this is like 95% on Rory right now.
Yeah.
Every time that we start going on a diatribe about why isn't this happening, it feels like it falls on Rory, and we need to find a way to not have it all fall on Rory.
Right. And it's not. And Rory, now you're back on. It's not. This has nothing to do with you. That's why I don't
take it personally. So don't worry about that.
But we want
to be able to help you. If there was a way we could help you, so that again, you have to manage. At the end of the day, when we go back to our jobs, it's falling upon you, right? But we want to make it so they believe it, not because you're saying it, because they see it not just from you, but from many others, right? And how it works.
That's why I'm hoping that the Rob Dyer example will be powerful, because then they'll see, then there will be an example. One of them has an example, right?
So Rob does his thing, right?
Yep.
And they're going to look at Rob and they're going to go, I mean, if I'm not motivated to change, I'm going to look at Rob and I'm going to go, brown noser.
Or I'm going to say, Rob's a software guy, so he gets this anyways. I'm Public Works. I'm never going to understand this. Or I'm just using, I shouldn't have said, right. I'm another department. I'm not going to understand this.
There were two things that you guys said that I was like, yeah, but that's not how it works here, which isn't to say it's not how it should work, but I'm saying, like, this is what I was saying when my internet cut out, sorry about that, is that some of the fundamental parts of this that you guys, I don't know if you assume they're in place, but they're not. Number one, like, at the end of the year, when I get my review, well, let me stop you right there. Mm-hmm. Because the review process does not exist.
Okay.
How could that be?
You say that.
But we settled that getting the human resource manager. So that
And
Should not be an issue.
as busy as I am, Chris is that busy because we have one human resources person who is covering the 100 town employees, the retirees, and doing benefits management for the 350 Board of Ed employees. And so like what he's been working on, I'm telling you guys, we're working on fundamentals still where, you know, our payroll system was completely screwed up. And we had the goal, one of our goals was, you know, HRIS implementation. So that has been what Chris is working on in the background all the time. But between, you know, we changed healthcare providers again in July, just between, you know, managing the day-to-day and doing some of these like projects that are not in a strategic plan, but come along from time to time, and just pushing forward the HRIS system. That's been his driver because we really believe that's going to be a value added, but that's the capacity. You know, where we're operating on establishing fundamentals that, you know, right now, one of the big things is we're doing a records management project because the archives at the community center are a disaster. And God forbid anybody needed to find something. I mean, it is truly a needle in a haystack. There's no rhyme or reason. There's stuff there from the 70s. And so, like, these are the things that we're
Stuff like that. Why aren't we? And again, and I don't know. Why wouldn't we hire someone to work for him for a period of time to do legwork like that? Because that's more.
Bob, that's up to you, Bob.
But no one's asked. You know, but you say that, Stefan. No one's asked us for that.
Well,
I mean,
so this
That's true. I know how it works. I know how it works in that selectmen rarely, if ever, suggest adding more positions, but maybe it's something that needs to be discussed.
But even if you did it as a part-time position, or listen, there's plenty. You could take a high school kid and teach them how to do some of that stuff underneath somebody's role. I mean,
But what it sounds like is we probably need another HR person. We need Chris to be an HR manager, and we need an HR generalist or whatever.
So, but I mean,
but that's way outside of our like.
Yeah, and
purview.
Like, let me tell you, because when Kurt was around, Kurt did the budget. I looked at the budget, but Kurt did it. I was a little more involved in the creation this year. You know, when we're looking at healthcare at an 8% increase, and that was an excellent result for us. And that alone is, you know, several $100,000 increase. Just the salaries at the 2.5%, you know, contractual increase, you're looking at a couple $100,000 more. So the budget pressures and the pressures of, you know, not raising taxes, I think that is one of the fundamental disconnects here, which is that, like, we need more people. Yeah, we do. I mean, we could easily do with another full-timer in the finance department. We could have another HR person. I mean, we had Malia was supporting the first selectman, me, and Chris. And so part of it is just a capacity issue. And there is, you know, the firefighting aspect. And I know the idea of strategic planning is you spend less time firefighting because you spend more time planning and you know, preempt the fires. But like,
if everything's already on fire, okay,
everything's burning.
No, let me, so here's my thought. If everything is on fire, you need to put the fires out first. And should we rethink the strategic plan to focus on putting out the fires before we start trying to build the new building?
I think that's the utility of a 1-year version. One year
right,
should be hitting those fires.
We're past the time, you know, this is California in 2020. We're past the time of seasonal fires. Everything's on fire all the time. You know, state aid is just decreasing. The tax pressures are increasing. You know, things are just the way they are. So all I'm saying is, you know, things are the way they are. And that doesn't mean we can't improve them. But, you know, the you know, the way it works, right? Like, so Bob, the selectmen, you guys say, and again, I think I'm not criticizing your decision because there was no good answer to this one, but the cemetery on Derby Avenue, right? If we don't take care of it, it goes to hell, and eventually we're going to take care of it anyway, so we should just do it now, right? Don't disagree with that because
No, Bob Finley didn't say that. Bob Finley said, let's find somebody to manage it.
I mean, they weren't wrong in that eventually it's the town's problem.
Right.
And so we just said, okay, we'll just do it now, right? Well, that means another part-timer for Public Works, right?
Yeah, but that's the biggest problem because even when we made that decision, there was no one put a finance sheet in front of us to say, this is what it would look like when we take it on. We just said, oh, it's an extra head, or it's another couple hours. We got to mow this place. And then everybody went, oh, okay. The problem becomes when we're making some of those decisions, we're doing gut checks with not enough factual data. That's why when we first made Stefan, you were on the board at that point when we made that decision, correct? I think you were. You're wrong. No, maybe you weren't.
Oh.
So
I've been a part of a lot of tough decisions. Don't put this one on me.
I'm sorry. No, when it came to us, the first thing I said was, let's look for a place that does that on a repeated basis. I hope you remember that because I said, let's go look.
No, I do.
In fact, the paper quoted me like I was the bad guy. And I was like, wait a second. I just want the financial reason first before we're just going to absorb this. And all of a sudden, we're $7,000 for the next, whatever it's going to carry us. And then we got to carry that the next 30, 40 years, you know?
All right.
So
we're going way down
Yeah,
rabbit
no,
hole here.
I drove us into the weeds. I apologize.
I really think that we need to bring it back a little bit, and we need to hope that that Rob will get us to where we need to be. We need to hope that we can use that as like a Trojan horse if we need to for everybody else.
but listen, in saying that, Stefan, can we have Rob? Maybe we should all be with Rob and talk through it to make it so he wins no matter what.
I think that's a good idea. I think that we need to, use maybe Rob as like a pilot to test this out, and we need to make sure that it succeeds. Like, no matter what, we need to show a win from it. And then we need to take that and be like, here's a template. Like, here's how you do it. Here's what it does.
So here's my question.
Maybe we were too aggressive thinking that this could be done at the beginning of this year. It doesn't seem like that's realistic, but why can't we get one or two departments to do it this year and work from there?
You were going to say something.
Well, I was going to ask is that one is you had mentioned that Rob had something in his way before he could actually start focusing on this, if I heard you correctly. Mm-hmm. Second, is there somebody we can sort of sidecar along with Rob? Rob kind of gets it. So I feel like Rob's going to be just sort of a guidance situation. Is there somebody in the bullpen who, we can groom simultaneously? The answer can be no.
Let me take a look. 1 second.
Maybe somebody who asks for a lot, somebody who's frustrated with not getting what they want.
That's a good point.
I think
find somebody who's got a pain point.
I think normally I would say Chris Pelosi would be great because he's at Rob's level. He operates at an extremely high level all the time. It's just I think there are capacity issues there. My next suggestion would be Tony DePrimo, because I think he gets it. It seems like he sees the value, but I think, you know, he would be somebody who would benefit from some guidance.
But is there somebody who comes in front of the finance board every year and gets smacked down?
I think if you ask every single department head, they will say yes.
No, absolutely, absolutely. But you know what? My thinking is, let's get somebody who's got an open wound.
Well,
If we can't help them close it.
Moody might be the right guy. I mean,
here's what I'm thinking, right? So just having gone through the budget process, right? When you go to make cuts and you're going through the budget, you can cut $50 from travel line items and you'll save $8,000 by the end of the budget. What you look at are the real capital intensive departments, right? And so those are primarily the police, who normally I would say, you know, yes, we should, but just with the chief's contract being up in the air, I don't think that that's the right place to spend time. So Tony DePrimo would be number 2. And Tony hasn't gotten smacked down recently. He's made out very well in the capital budgets and some, you know, but that's because Tony has delivered results. And so Tony is a great example of somebody who is making strategic decisions already, but just in order to arrive where we want him to be, you know, could use a little help on the administrative end.
Okay. So maybe we can help him connect those 2 dots, because that's literally what we're doing here. Is here's your strategic thinking. We're going to illustrate your strategic thinking, and we're going to demonstrate the result. We're going to help him with the bit in the middle.
Yep. And that's it. You know, like Tony on his own generates raw data, right? I mean, you've seen his spreadsheets, right? Now, those could use a little polish, right? And we could focus a little better on key performance indicators and really like teach him this strategic.
to maximize it instead of, right. Yep.
But clearly the capacity is there. I mean, Tony's on it. He just needs a little bit of guidance.
He's the guy then.
Yep. And maybe for you, Rory, then what it becomes is, yeah, you mention it to everybody else. You keep it so it's on people's minds. You don't let it just fade away, but you put your energy into Rob and Tony.
Yeah. I mean, here's what I'm hoping, guys. I can't remember what normal is like, right? Like the past year has been awful, and just there's meetings every night. And I'll be finishing my master's in like a month. And so, well, you know, once that's done too, like, God willing, things are opening back up. I have a lot more capacity, but right now it does seem very daunting to like sit down with all 15 members of the, senior staff and plot this out in, you know, I'm feeling the strain of that. If you're telling me to focus on a couple of people, much more manageable, definitely on board with that.
But again, I would still, when you're in your staff meetings, still make a reference to it. You don't want it to go away.
I'm an evangelist. Don't worry. It comes up every month. I make a point of it. I go last. In the beginning, I say, thank you everybody for being here. Please remember, I want updates on where you are on your 1-year strategic plan items as you're providing your updates. And then I go and I reiterate.
And if you start with the 2 that followed the path and you do it in a short period of time for them, and then you grill the others, they'll start to understand.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Okay, yep, we're in good. Yeah, they show their dashboard. You're good. You don't spend a lot of time on theirs, and then the other ones you make them sweat through it. Then they'll recognize the importance of just having it down on paper. That's what I would do.
Absolutely. I mean, right, we need somebody to show results. That's how we'll get the buy-in. And that was the appeal of Rob, and I think Tony's another excellent candidate.
All right.
And Rory, like we keep saying, if wherever we can help you, I know you got a million things going on. If wherever we can help you, that's where we want to be.
I
know?
Until Malia came, which was, she was there for 18 months, I did not delegate. And so that is one thing that I am not good at, is saying like, oh, I have resources available to me that I can, share the load. So I appreciate that, and I will try to do better at tapping you
I
guys.
want you to feel like it's all on you. It's
Yeah.
not fair, and it's not really what it is.
And you have a unique situation here where we're all good at this stuff in our own regards.
Mhm.
And even more than that, we're all sick in the head to the point where we're willing to do things for free, and because we're passionate about it. So just
Thanks for
ask,
picking
man,
it
like,
And maybe it's a matter of, now that you get the schedule sorted with the meeting time, maybe us just being a presence. Somebody, we can work out a schedule between the three of us, or whatever it is, just being a presence. We're not this disembodied group of people, the great and powerful Oz who sits over behind a curtain.
If we help somebody create their strat plan and showed them how easy it was to come up with it and made it repeatable for them, they'll buy in.
100%.
I think it's just an abstraction right now.
It is.
It's a daunting thing that they know nothing about right now, and
Not to trash Kurt. He used it with S&P, and I knew he knew it was a good thing, but he didn't really drive it. And so I think we're on the right path, right? The word strategic plan is something that is in the heads of the senior staff, which it was not before. They have seen it. They have seen the 1-year plan. They know what the expectation is. So it's an improvement. It's not where we want to be, but we're on the right path. But I think you're right. In order to make this not something that is being driven externally, for them to, to see the value of it, I think they need an example.
And Anne Marie needs to evangelize.
Yeah.
I mean, it's wonderful that you are our voice, but she does need to evangelize it. If she wants it, she's gonna have to evangelize it.
I'm going to talk to her separately about it.
Mm-hmm. And I think the offer goes to her as well. If there's something we can do to support her in being able to evangelize it, I mean, I'm sure she's up to her eyeballs just like you are.
Mm.
Let us help.
Okay.
That's all. All right. So I think so do we have anything on the EDC to update? I'm going to keep moving along so we can get back to our regularly scheduled programming tonight. We kind of dove down a rabbit hole. So the next item on the agenda is an update on the EDC plan. Now, Bob, you did some work on it.
I did, but they had some changes there, and they're really gonna probably redoing that whole board. So I would just assume they get reestablished as a board, and then we can bring that back to them.
2 of 5 members resigned, and they have members lined up. So at the next board of selection meeting, we were going to do it ahead of time, but we had reached out to the parties for members, and then the members themselves put forward names as well. So I think what we're going to do, we have 5 names for 2 spots. So I think what we'll do is we will do members and alternates so that they've got a good roster, and we'll do 2 alternates. So one person will not, move forward, but we'll figure that out.
Okay. All right. So more to come on that.
And then
Um,
once it's done, then we could just send them back the markup and let them go through it again. And
Yeah, Bob, I don't know if you have a little more insight into, who were the drivers of what we received, and whether they're still on the board, but we'll figure it out.
well, they didn't really touch it that much, and so from the feedback I got, so they made a couple of changes, but not a lot. So it might be worth them reviewing that again and taking another stab at it. So, with a new board.
okay. So I think maybe what we'll do is we'll keep this on the agenda, just so that we don't lose sight of it, even if our update on it is microscopic at best, just to kind of keep them on our radar.
Yep.
Fire services plan oh, I see that face.
Did they ask you for it, Rory? Didn't they want to meet?
I had been speaking with the chief and the chair of the fire commission. The chair of the commission was essentially deposed last night. Basically, he was serving. We had some issues with how the nomination process usually works, being impacted by COVID. The firehouses were not able to meet because of capacity constraints, blah, blah, blah. And so what usually would already have been done was done last night, and they've replaced the commissioner who was the chair, who tells me he had already been working on stuff. So back to the drawing board, basically. The other thing I'll say, we do a monthly roundtable with them. We do a weekly update with all of the public safety folks. And I think the fire chief who attends those was feeling a little over meeting. And so maybe as COVID relaxes, that will improve.
Boy, you probably don't have any empathy for that statement.
I will say that, they are volunteers. And so, calling in from work and that kind of thing, I'm sure is challenging. I can't relate because, calling in is my work. So I know it was a stressful time. There were some other things going on. I'm being optimistic here.
You always are.
I try. All right, so we're going to leave that item on the agenda as well, just so we don't lose sight of it. And then we already talked quite a bit about Rob's IT strategic plan. So I think we're going to mark that puppy done for today. And again, I'm going to leave these things on the agenda just so we don't lose sight of them, and we can touch base, albeit quickly, when we get together.
Can I ask a question, not to go backwards?
Mm-hmm.
Am I focusing exclusively on Rob and Tony? Or am I still trying to slowly drive the process with the others, maybe just not as hands-on?
Listen, I would put your focus on it, and if somebody reached out at this point, then help them. But I would just put your focus on the two that you can make headway with at this point.
Yeah, and I think as far as everybody else, like I said, don't let it completely fall off the table. I think you want to keep the conversation, keep the words in their ears, but almost sort of cruise control them and just kind of say, like you've been doing, hey, I need your updates for the strategic plan, and leave it there. If they don't give me anything.
I would make it real clear the next time you had a staff meeting, the ones that are working with you, strategic plan, I'd shorten their discussions up real quick and
Mhm.
make them feel like you're already communicating to them, and make sure the rest of the team sees that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the way I'd approach it. And this way, you know, because then they'll recognize that they don't have to go crazy every time you have a meeting. You're already up to speed. It's simple.
Demonstrating value.
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah, demonstrating value. And that's really what it is we're going to find a pain point, we're going to resolve it, and we're going to show how this makes their lives easier. Show
And
don't
when
tell.
they come to you, yeah, and when they come to you for money or budget item, the guys that have the strat plan together, it'd make it a little easier than the guys that don't.
And then I think sort of like the next step is you just start asking for the things that the guys who are towing the line are doing. You know, hey, you're going to go up in front of the Board of Finance or whatever it is. So we're going to need to see that chart. That graph needs to be there. You know, people start asking for stuff, you know, instead of going up and doing a tap dance, I want to see it. We need a graph. This is what we need. But that's next step. That's 2.0. Let's get Rob and Tony, you know, doing this, and then and starting to show value.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to, and I think I speak on behalf of everybody here, don't be afraid to ask a specific question. Don't be afraid to text. Don't be afraid to send an email going, hey, you know.
What I think I'll do is, you know, just trying to think my way through how I'm going to approach this. I'm going to set meetings with them. When I have those meetings, I will let you guys know. And if you're available and you want to attend, then we'll just turn on a camera and we'll Zoom you guys in.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, as long as I don't have a conflicting meeting with, you know, my day job,
Right.
I can usually jump on for a few minutes here and there. You know, it's not a huge thing. The only time it's an issue is if somebody else has me on camera that time.
Yeah, same.
So,
Yeah.
but we're here for you, Roar. We really are. I don't want it to just sound like we're just, you know, flapping. So. All right. So do we have any other news for our open discussion? Any other rabbit holes we want to go down today? All right. Cool. So let's go back to our public and see if they've come up with any burning questions over the course of the last hour.
Seemed pretty quiet.
Yeah, they've been very well behaved. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, first by Stefan, second by Bob. Timeout 8:17.
Bye, guys.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Have a
Bob.
good night.